Good afternoon, everyone. We're live on Expert Speak with Vani Kola. Good afternoon, Vani. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Adil. How are you doing? I think uh, I feel grateful every day for all that we have been given, and that's a good start for this session also. Though I know all of us have different dilemmas and different crises that we are confronting, but to be positive about the opportunity is how I feel about things.
Absolutely, Vani. I felt you would be the perfect person to discuss the theme of changing consumer behavior. You're obviously, uh, uh, regarded as a legendary investor. I've seen you talk in mid-March about how this COVID is a crisis. In fact, you called it a generational crisis and not a slowdown, and how true your words have turned out. The theme of today is changing consumer behavior and how we can embrace that. And like you said earlier, it's important for us to understand and act now. Can you tell us more when you say important to act now to thrive tomorrow? What did you have in mind, Vani?
Let's take two different stream of thoughts. Uh, First and foremost, to just kind of do some setup, historically, always, when there is a, whatever the cause may be, there is a foundational shift, there is a paradigm shift, right? Some people win big, and some people who couldn't flex or see the future sort of are set back, right? And we can write a book on this through many phase periods of where this was the case. Here, of course, we have a economic and a human cost, a significant human cost. But for a moment, for this conversation, set that aside, and you say there is a paradigm shift, which there is, right? Paradigm shift on how consumers are transforming and how the world is transforming, whether be it supply chains or credit or many areas, right? Now the question is, how do you leverage that as an opportunity for yourself, right? So, if you agree with that largely, which I think all of us would agree, then if you think over the next year, because this is not about next week and in 2 weeks, what can I do or not? If you look at it over the next year, maybe even you look at it over the next decade from sort of scale of opportunity, then I think there are two things. You are a entrepreneur who's starting today. You are someone who's in the throes of whatever product vision you already had, right? If you're in the throes of a product vision you already had, and that has been severely affected, let us say with COVID, the question is, it's kind of like, if there is gangrene, sometimes you have to amputate, otherwise you might actually lose the whole body, right? So the question is, what do you need to do to survive for the next year so that you could thrive over the next decade, right? In something that's going to be a very changed landscape, right? So
Absolutely.
that's important to think about. Now, if you're starting afresh, then it's a green field. Not that it's easier. I'm not saying it's easier, but it's a green field. So I do think it's important to think about whatever you were doing as a business before. What do you need to do in a decisive way, rather than be wishful thinking or iterative about it? Can you kind of set a vision for the next year, next decade for yourself and your business? That's, I think, the most important exercise to go through.
Yeah, absolutely, Vani. So let's double click on understanding changing consumer behavior, because once you understand that, a business can adapt. We're going to do this conversation in two parts. In the first, we're going to focus on changing consumer behavior in the BFSI sector. Now, I can start with some learnings we are seeing at Bank Bazaar in the last 2 months. It appears very clear there is a new normal. Consumers don't want to go to a place to hand over documents. In fact, they don't even want someone to come to their house to pick up anything. There is a clear expectation that everything needs to be done on the mobile phone using instant authentication. So, in fact, we're running a survey as we speak. We've hit about 700 responses, where 70% of the consumers say they want contactless access to credit. When you think about banking and credit, right, what is the consumer behavior going to look like over the next 1 year, Vani?
Look, credit is a necessity today, and maybe some of the credit models we had before could work or not, but in the new normal, more people are going to need credit. And companies that, first and foremost, on the back end, you have to do your you have to do your segmentation and understand what is the profile of risk that you are able to take, and how does that present as a large ongoing opportunity, right? So there is in credit, the problem is never on demand, right? There is more than enough demand. And how do you ensure that you can find the micro opportunities that are actually significant, right? From having better than average from recoverable loans and having less NPAs, right? So I think on credit, it hasn't been and will never be a question of demand. It'll really be around how you can segment that demand, right? So now technology can play a big role both in the back end but also in the front end. And but Adi, look, I mean, you are in the hot seat and you are at the steering wheel. I sort of have a ringside view of being an observer and just giving broad general statements, right? So you are up close to this. But credit can be many things. It can be from short period, long period, micro amounts, to large, to rural, urban, technology savvy, non-technology savvy, different age, specific purpose, for going to college, for paycheck to paycheck. I mean, for buying that equipment that you need, for hospital bills. So I think there is many ways to segment credit, but the most important, of course, is the risk profiling and recoverability. And that's really where companies who do it right have huge opportunity ahead of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just double clicking on risk profiling, right? One clear trend we're starting to play out is lenders are becoming more choosy about the kind of consumers in terms of credit score that they would lend to. So I think it's very, very important while people make use of the moratorium, if they have to, that one watches the credit score. Because in the past, if lenders were willing to look at a credit score of X, now it's obviously becoming a higher 1.2x in order to get access to a product. We're also seeing the nature of the product change, Vani, because you spoke about needing something for the short term. Maybe you need to pay for a school fee that's starting, or maybe there's a wedding which is happening. What we're finding is the nature of products is getting tweaked. So very interestingly, no one is traveling and no one is consuming entertainment. So all the credit card benefits around travel and entertainment, saying get a airline ticket free, are now changing to get something better when you shop online for essential, or use this for groceries. So the nature of the product is changing. Now, you have a ringside seat, Vani, because a very powerful, great portfolio. And there are companies which are actually working on digitizing the supply chain. I want to double click on video KYC and
Yes.
central KYC. Now, the RBI allowed it in January. One would say great foresight, right? Just before the shutdown happened, RBI allows it. I think this can dramatically change things for us if video KYC and CKYC can take off. What is your view, Vani?
Yeah, this is a general conversation, not a portfolio pitch, but we have a company, Sign and we have some other companies that are broadly in the, credit or consumer enablement infrastructure from BFSI. And I do think that is a, as we need underlying technologies that can be embedded into making the front end so simple, right? So you take your remote, you click, change the channel, TV works, right? So at a consumer level, it needs to be that simple. What that means is how the technology gets tagged to make it simpler for the consumer has to be thought through by any of the front facing companies that are underwriting credit. So I don't see any way, first of all, around not deeply embedding video KYC, CKYC, alternate models of credit scoring. Because if we all only want that customer who, is kind of saying, I want to play bond, okay, but people buy other bonds too because they're taking, that risk analysis from a portfolio construction. And so it's the same thing, right? So if everybody is only chasing someone who has fantastic credit score, there is no obvious business there. I think it's about being able to, like I said, micro segment. So I do think that there are a lot of embedded underlying technologies that are going to also succeed in order for demand fulfillment by actual service providers. And so KYC is a big part of it, and credit scoring is a second big part of it. And anything that can dynamically kind of ease the assessment and evaluation process from centralized documents, locker, digital wallet, locker, whatever it is, and makes also collections more streamlined. These are all underlying technologies that will most definitely be more of platform technologies that different digital service providers in the BFSI sector will leverage.
Yeah, absolutely, Vani. So I think what we're saying is consumer behavior is changing. They're not going to do the things the same way they used to before. And there is a change with the supply chain being fully digital with video KYC, central KYC. So it's a time wherein I think fintech companies can focus on the new normal and probably accelerate through what is otherwise a very, very tough situation because digital is going to predominate. On that note, right, I'm going to shift to the second part of our conversation. And this is where I think you have a 360-degree view, which is fairly broad. Which industries are consumers going to adopt digital quickly, Vani? Because you see this across verticals. We spoke about BFSI, but when we look at non-BFSI, right, which industries are going to see the most rapid adoption of digital from consumers?
Many, but to just pick top ones that come to my mind, I think we'll see significant new adoption and changed behavior in health and wellness, in education, in entertainment, and gaming is part of entertainment. It's a much broader umbrella when I say entertainment, and commerce, right? These would be for apart from financial services, but financial services at many levels is also an enabler of all of these activities, right? So I think these four will grow from their digital adoption significantly.
Absolutely. And you have investments in these sectors. Now, how does one separate or who's going to win, Vani? Because every entrepreneur, and you've been guiding them for decades now, everyone thinks they're going to win. But what do you think is going to separate the winners from the losers as the digital bounce back really accelerates?
If everyone thinks they are going to win, I'd love to talk to all of them, because when I was an entrepreneur, I always had butterflies in my stomach. And, you worry that you're not going to win. And that's why you're going to not leave any stone unturned. And you're going to look for every opportunity to improve, your product, improve your customer access, your customer, score, and supply chains and whatnot. But so, look, it's always easy to write history and then be able to say, oh yeah, I saw this, and this is why, and this is why, and this is why, and all of that. But it's always easy to look back and say, oh yeah, I saw the success for sure coming. But it's not like that on the ground on a microscopic basis, right? So but there are some generalities we can derive from. And just because I feel in the end, everything is about people. Thought creates ideas create action creates outcomes, and the thought originates in a person's mind. Okay, so I think the person leading through crisis becomes very, very important. That's why whether you take war or commerce or anything, we talk about leaders, right? And we all understand that minus that leader, outcomes could have been very different. So leadership is a very important thing during crisis. During non-crisis, maybe you can have more babysitting leadership, but in crisis you need absolutely hands-on leadership. And what is leadership supposed to do, right? To me, it is first setting a course of action. And no one sets a course of action with absolute 100% conviction that it is going to give you the glory, but you say this is the best path available for me today, right? So you have to kind of take all the known and unknown data, but you have to be decisive. And many times that goes through a too long a iterative process. So I think the first step for a leader is to be able to take a decisive direction that they're going to set for the company, given all the data. We have only 3 months of cash, we have only 12 months of cash. This product post COVID is valid, not valid, there's a new opportunity, and for that we are going to cannibalize existing opportunity, whatever those may be. But you have to set a definitive course of action. Okay, and don't delay that for longer than needed just because you're not able to embrace reality pragmatically, right? So that's one. Time is not on your side. Second, I think is you need people to follow you. And so communication, and authentic communication to everyone, rather than, oh, I know we are going to win, nobody's going to believe it. If you say, I know that 12 months later we are going to be absolutely the next billion-dollar company, even though today my revenue is zero. I mean, everybody is a smart person out there. So what they want is authentic communication to say, this is how we are going to go ahead, and I really need your support. And that requires a little bit of true humility also. And then the third is really, beyond communication, this is to all stakeholders, whether that's your suppliers, whether that's your customers, whether that's your employees, whether that's your investors. You need authentic communication as a leader so everyone can follow you. They want to follow you, but you have to make it possible for them to know where you're going, what the pitfalls are, and what the peaks could be. They understand there are no peaks without pitfalls, but they need to know that and follow you, right? So I think that's the second thing that's really important. And third, is really financially, even if you have a great idea and great people, capital is a prime mover. And even today, too often I get, but I don't know if I should dilute. It's sort of like, if you're willing to sort of be done, then be done, right? If you want to survive for being able to create something bigger, greater, because you really believe in the bigger cause, then focus on the long-term goals and make the short-term compromises you have to make, right? And be at peace with it. So those are some things I would say, and take and be willing to listen. I mean, when I say listen, listening is not the same as somebody controlling your decision making. The decision making is yours, the step number one. But do you take enough diverse feedbacks so that the quality of your decision making is better, right? So when I observe these things in play in a leader or in a person, I think that they increase their probability of winning. But listen, I mean, I don't feel every day that I'm going to definitely win. But I know that I'm trying my best towards taking everyday decisions that increase the probability of my winning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I hear you saying is that we can always sit around and say everything is so bad. But a true leader is one who says, yes, things are bad in the short term, but here is the long term opportunity because of changing consumer behavior. And here are the four things we are going to do. So you're saying that if you articulate that and you can lead, that this actually, you could outrun the others in the next 6 months. Am I understanding this right?
Yeah, 6 months, 12 months, I think this is not a 6 month issue at all, right? It's not. And so I think we are too short term today, thinking about what do I do this quarter, what do I do 2 quarters, but not thinking about, let me sort of think about best case, worst case, and prepare for the worst case and make your decisions still be relevant, so that you're not going through cut after cut. And when I say cut, I don't mean like people resources or anything, that too maybe, but just from your decision making, right? They say, death by a 1,000 cuts is worse than one stroke, right? And it's the same way. So meaning that make the big decisions thinking into taking a little bit more long term view, because I mean, 6 months, what's going to happen? 6 months, I think we are still all going to be fighting the same things on the street we are fighting today, but as a business, I think you need to think the next 12 to 24 months. What are the choices I need to make? Now, for that, there may be certain decisions you need to make today, certain decisions you need to make 3 months from now, 6 months from now. That's fine. So I'm not saying, there isn't sort of a mapping in detail of this. But think about 12 to 24 months from now. What is the plan where you have leadership in your category, in your product, in your customer, in your market share, and in your customer score, right? So I think we are making short-term decisions, very short-term micro decisions, wishfully thinking life will go back. If by now we all know life isn't going back to what was, that doesn't mean life isn't great or life couldn't be good, but it isn't what was. All of us have a very different, normal and context from which we are going to operate, and that is every one of our customers, and we have to cater to them in the evolving context.
Right, right. So, what you're saying is there's been a big change in consumer, and we are going to have to make big changes to respond. And the sooner you realize that, the better. So, if you think that incrementally you're going to manage this over the next 6 months, then you're not down the right path. Truly understand what the company is going to look like 12 months from now. Now, that is a good segue into the user questions. Um, so the question we have first up, right, and maybe I can start with the Bank Bazaar context is we are saying the big change is that in 12 months, 80% of sales is going to be 100% digital via video KYC, CKYC. 20% is going to be normal. That's the mirror opposite of what it was today. Now, that's a big statement. And the reason I say that is some people say that, hey, things will be back to normal soon and let's just get through the next 3 months. Should we say that uh, that is too small, that things are never going to be the same again? Have things changed forever, Vani, for consumer companies?
I firmly believe so, Adil. I mean, I think at every level. I mean, from distribution models, from supply chain models, from how customer interfaces interacts, what they are going to value and not value. I just think that. But the way to think about it, from my view, is how often do I have an opportunity to cater to paradigm shifts, right? And they always break open many new uh, uh, important opportunities where large companies get created. Most of them have a root in having taken advantage of a paradigm shift. Take any company, Facebook, Google, whatever, Microsoft, even way back in the 80s. So there is a paradigm shift that helped large companies to form because they understood the impact of that paradigm shift and catered to that much more rapidly.
So you're saying this is not a time to be negative. This is a time to recognize the new paradigm and act on it, so that in the next 1 year you can excel. This is not a time for negativity, right?
I mean, it goes back to people and life philosophies. There is, no value in negativity at any time. So you might as well sort of be positive, because the outcomes, like we already talked about, right, starts with attitudes. So no one, even in the worst of weather, let us say, wins a medal because it started with, gosh darn that weather, I'm not going to win. Well, you're not going to win, right? Darn that weather, but I will win. And so I think this attitude. And so we might all today, Adil, be positive. That doesn't mean we ignore realities, and responsibilities, right? So there's a balance though on our reality and responsibility, coupled with truly hope. And that's what positivity is, that you hope that there is a place and a purpose and an impact you can create, and you work towards it.
Absolutely, Vani. That's truly inspiring. So we should recognize the difficulty. There's no hiding away from it. Like you said, this is a once in a generation challenge. This is not an economic slowdown. But yet, right, the people who win have hope. So thank you for sharing your message with us. It's been phenomenal talking to you. It's been my pleasure. I'm going to sign off now, and I hope all the viewers found this expert speak with Vani Kola helpful. We plan to bring more such industry leading experts in India to you. Please stay tuned and stay safe until we speak next. Thank you. Thank
And
you,
you
Vani.
too, Adil. You stay strong and safe, okay? And thanks for making this happen today.
Thank you, Vani. Bye.
All right. Bye.
Bye.